January of 2025, a short message appeared on the official account of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It was only a few lines long, written in the first person, and signed simply with a single letter C in it. The Princess of Wales told the world that her cancer was in remission. There was no grand statement, no carefully staged photograph, no choreographed ceremony. There was only a quiet woman telling the truth about a hard year and thanking the people who had cared for her. And in that small, steady gesture, the whole world saw something it had come to rely on without quite realizing it. Because for years now, when the British monarchy has been shaken by scandal, by loss, by uncertainty about whether it still belongs in the modern world, one figure has kept returning to the same place. Hospitals, schools, quiet visits to families nobody else remembered to visit. She has never been the loudest person in the room. She has rarely been the one chasing headlines. And yet somehow, she became the person the institution leans on when it needs the public to believe in it again. But to understand how Catherine, Princess of Wales, became that person, you have to go back long before the titles, long before the cameras, to an ordinary hospital in an ordinary English town, where there were no crowns and no expectations at all. She was born Catherine Elizabeth Middleton on the 9th of January, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading, England. There was nothing royal about her arrival. Her father, Michael Middleton, had worked as a flight dispatcher. Her mother, Carol, born Carol Goldsmith, had worked as a flight attendant, and the two of them had met while working for British Airways. They were not aristocrats in the way the tabloids would later imply, and they were not poor either. They were something more ordinary and, in its own way, more interesting. They were a family that worked. Catherine was the eldest of three. Her younger sister Pippa and her younger brother James would grow up beside her in a household built less on inherited wealth than on effort and ambition. When Catherine was still very young, her father's work took the family abroad, to Amman in Jordan, where Catherine attended an English-speaking nursery school and learned, even as a small child, how to adapt to a place that was not her own. By the time the family returned to England in the mid-1980s, they had settled in Berkshire, in a world of quiet villages and country lanes. And then came the moment that would quietly shape everything. In 1987, inspired in part by the struggle of trying to organize a decent birthday party for her own daughter, Carol Middleton started a business from inside her own home. It was a mail-order company selling party supplies, balloons, candles, paper plates, all the small things that make a child's celebration feel special. She called it Party Pieces. She had no investors and no guarantees. She simply saw a gap and she filled it. That business would grow far beyond anything the family could have imagined. It would lift the Middletons from a comfortable middle-class life into genuine wealth. And it would teach Catherine something that no royal tutor ever could have. It taught her that status is not something you are handed. It is something you build slowly, with patience and work, from the ground up. Years later, when the world tried to decide whether she truly belonged among kings and queens, that lesson would be the thing nobody could take from her. As a girl, Catherine was sent first to St. Andrew's School and then to the prestigious Marlborough College. She was not famous for being the cleverest or the most glamorous student. She was famous, among those who knew her, for being capable. She captained the girls' field hockey team. She completed the demanding Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, a program that pushes young people through physical challenge, service, and endurance. She was, by every honest account, a steady, sporty, hard-working young woman who did things properly and did not make a fuss about it. When school ended, she did something that revealed a quiet streak of independence. Rather than rushing straight into university, she took a gap year, and she did not spend it idly. She traveled to Florence, in Italy, to study art at the British Institute. She joined Raleigh International and went to Chile, working on community projects and trekking through hard country. She even took work as a deckhand on the busy waters near Southampton, doing the kind of unglamorous physical labor that future princesses are not supposed to do. None of it was for show. There were no cameras following her then. She was simply a young woman finding out what she was made of. In 2001, Catherine enrolled at the University of St Andrews, on the windswept coast of Scotland, to study the history of art. It is a decision that would change the course of her entire life, though she could not have known it at the time. Because also studying at St Andrews, sharing many of the same lecture halls and the same long Scottish winters, was a young man named William, the elder son of the heir to the British throne. They did not fall in love at first sight, or at least not in the way the fairy tales suggest. They became friends first. They shared a course. They moved eventually into a house with a small group of other students, living the ordinary, slightly chaotic life of university friends, cooking badly, staying up late, learning who they were away from the watchful eyes of family. There is a well-known story that William first truly noticed her when she walked in a student charity fashion show in a daring sheer dress, and that something shifted in him in that moment. Whether or not that single evening was the turning point, what is certain is that friendship slowly, quietly, turned into something deeper. For a time, they managed to keep it private, but Catherine was now in a relationship with a future king, and privacy for her was about to become a thing of the past. By 2004, the couple had been photographed together on holiday in Switzerland, and the secret was out. From that moment on, Catherine Middleton was no longer just a bright art history graduate from Berkshire. She was the woman who might one day marry the prince, and the press would never look away again. What followed was not the smooth ascent that people sometimes imagine. The relationship was tested. In 2007, after years of intense public pressure and the strain of building a life under a microscope, Catherine and William broke up. For most young couples, a breakup is private heartbreak. For Catherine, it was front-page news dissected by strangers, mocked by columnists. The tabloids, impatient for a royal wedding that had not yet come, gave her a cruel nickname. They called her Waity Katie, as if her great failing were simply that she had dared to wait, to hope, to love someone whose life was not entirely his own to give. And here is where you begin to see the quality that would define her. She did not lash out. She did not give angry interviews or sell her story. She held her head up, kept her dignity, and got on with her life. She grew more confident, not less. And within a matter of months, William returned. They reconciled, stronger than before. The painful chapter, she would later reflect, had not broken her. It had made her surer of who she was. In October of 2010, while on holiday together, William proposed, giving her the sapphire engagement ring that had once belonged to his late mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. The announcement came in November, and the world, which had waited so long, finally had its royal wedding to look forward to. On the 29th of April, 2011, Catherine Middleton walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey and married Prince William before a global audience numbering in the billions. She became the Duchess of Cambridge, and in doing so, she became something the modern monarchy had not seen in a very long time. She was, in the truest sense, a commoner, a woman not born into royalty, marrying directly into the line of succession to the British throne. The girl whose mother had run a party supply business out of the family home was now a member of the institution the British call, only half-jokingly, the firm. But marrying into the royal family is one thing. Earning a place in it in the eyes of the public is something else entirely. And this is where Catherine began, slowly and deliberately, to build the role that no one had handed her. She and William grew into the image of a modern royal couple, relatable in a way the monarchy badly needed. Together, they welcomed 3 children. Prince George arrived in 2013, Princess Charlotte in 2015, and Prince Louis in 2018. Through every pregnancy, every public appearance, every carefully guarded family holiday, Catherine tried to do something difficult. She tried to raise her children with as much normality as a life of cameras would allow, and to protect their childhoods fiercely, even as the whole world claimed a piece of them. Yet she understood, too, that a royal life cannot only be about family. It has to mean something to the country. And so she set about finding the causes that genuinely moved her, rather than simply attending events because tradition demanded it. Long before she had any title at all, there were hints of where her heart would lead. As a young woman, she had organized charity exhibitions and events, raising money for children's hospitals and good causes. After her marriage, that instinct deepened. In 2018, quietly and without seeking any praise for it, she had a significant length of her own hair cut off and donated to the Little Princess Trust, a charity that makes wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment. She did not announce it from a podium. It came to light almost by accident, and that, in a way, was the point. The gestures that meant the most to her were the ones she did not perform for an audience. Her real life's work, though, would center on something less obvious and far more ambitious. Over years of visiting hospitals, schools, prisons, and addiction centers, Catherine kept noticing the same pattern. So many of the struggles she saw in adults, she came to believe, could be traced back to the earliest years of life. And so she decided to dedicate herself to those years, the period from before birth to the age of 5, when a child's brain develops faster than at any other time. In June of 2021, she launched the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood, an organization built to fund research, bring experts together, and change the way society thinks about a child's first 5 years. And in early 2023, she went further, launching a major public campaign called Shaping Us, designed to make ordinary people understand just how crucial those early years truly are. It was not glamorous work. It would never trend the way a scandal does. But it was hers, chosen deliberately and pursued with a seriousness that surprised even those who had underestimated her. She had also, by now, lent her name to some of the most important mental health work the royal family had ever undertaken, helping to break the silence and the stigma that surround mental illness through initiatives that encouraged people, especially men, to talk about what they were carrying inside. Then, in September of 2022, the ground shifted beneath the entire institution. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest-reigning monarch in British history and the steady center of the family for 70 years, passed away. Her son became King Charles III. William became the Prince of Wales, and Catherine, the girl from Berkshire, became the Princess of Wales, inheriting a title once held by William's mother, Diana, a title weighted with history, expectation, and grief. It was an enormous moment. The monarchy was entering uncertain territory. A new king, older and more complicated in the public's affections than his mother had ever been. A family still healing from very public rifts. A younger generation across Britain and the wider world increasingly asking whether a monarchy even belonged in the modern age. Into all of that uncertainty stepped Catherine, not with grand speeches, but with the same quiet steadiness she had shown since her university days. And then came the year that would test her more than anything before it. In January of 2024, the palace announced that the Princess of Wales had undergone planned abdominal surgery. At the time, the public was told her condition was thought to be non-cancerous. She withdrew from public life to recover, and in her absence, something ugly happened. The internet filled with speculation, with conspiracy theories, with cruel jokes about where she was and what had really happened. For weeks, a woman recovering from major surgery became the subject of global rumor. Then in March of 2024, Catherine did something that silenced all of it. In a simple, direct video message filmed alone on a bench, she told the truth. Tests after her surgery had found cancer. She was undergoing a course of preventative chemotherapy. She spoke about her 3 young children, about needing time and privacy to heal, and about staying positive. There were no fireworks, no spin. Just a frightened mother and wife, being honest with a country that had not always been kind to her. The response was a wave of sympathy unlike almost anything she had received before. People who had mocked her fell silent. The speculation that had haunted her gave way at last to compassion, and through the long months that followed, she did exactly what she had always done. She endured, quietly and with dignity. In June of that year, still in the middle of treatment, she made a brief and carefully chosen public return, appearing at the annual Trooping the Color celebration, a gesture that reassured a worried nation. In September, she shared that she had completed her chemotherapy. And then, in January of 2025, came that short message signed with a single letter C, telling the world that her cancer was in remission. As she put it, it was a relief to be in remission, and she remained focused on her recovery. Alongside that news, she announced a new role as joint patron of the Royal Marsden, the very hospital that had treated her, turning her own ordeal into a way of helping others walking the same frightening path. But she did not pretend it was over or easy. Visiting cancer patients later, she spoke with rare honesty about how hard the experience had been, telling one person how much of a shock a diagnosis like that is. She described recovery not as a triumphant finish line, but as a roller coaster, a slow process of finding a new normal. There was no performance in it. There was only a woman who had been through something terrible, choosing to be truthful about it so that others might feel less alone. And that, in the end, is the real story. Not a fairy tale of a girl who married a prince, though that is part of it. The deeper story is about what kind of person she turned out to be when the lights were not flattering and the year was not kind. She was never born to wear a crown. She came from a family that built its own success one party balloon at a time. She was underestimated, nicknamed, doubted, and dismissed. She was told in so many words that her only job was to wait. And instead of breaking under all of it, she built something, a reputation for steadiness, a body of work centered on the youngest and most vulnerable, a kind of trust with the public that cannot be bought or inherited, only earned slowly, through years of showing up and doing the work properly. The British monarchy has survived for more than 1,000 years on bloodlines and ceremony, on tradition and law. But in this uncertain modern age, when the public no longer gives its loyalty automatically, the institution has come to depend on something else as well. It depends on people the public actually believes in, people who feel real. And somehow, the girl from Berkshire who once worked as a deckhand and studied art history in a cold Scottish town became exactly that. Not because she demanded it, not because anyone gifted it to her, but because, year after year, in the quiet way she had always done everything, she earned it. She never chased the spotlight, and perhaps that is precisely why, in the end, the spotlight came to rest so gently and so firmly on her.